Welcome to Empowered by Iron, hosted by Dr. Kristen Lander from Fiercely Fueled Nutrition Coaching and Mary Morton from M&M Coaching, remote coaching for the novice athlete. Together, we are empowered by iron. This episode is sponsored by Freak Athlete Apparel. Freak Athlete and Empowered by Iron have teamed up and are offering you 15% off your Freak Athlete apparel for this week when you use the code Empowered by Iron, and that's one word, Empowered by Iron. Stay tuned for the end of the episode where we're going to announce a giveaway that we are doing with Freak Athlete. Welcome to Empowered by Iron this week. So we're going to talk about some gear that you guys need for powerlifting, weightlifting, and CrossFit. And we're going to break down what is necessary, what's optional, and what's the difference between competition gear and training gear. So we are going to start off with powerlifting. So powerlifting, for competitions, you have necessary gear and optional gear. And when I did my first meet, I didn't realize that you couldn't just go and get like the cheapest singlet you can or the cheapest belt you can get or whatever. You actually have to, depending on the federation you're in, you have to abide by their equipment rules. So they'll have certain brands that they have approved and that they have determined that they are safe for use or they're okayed for use at whatever sanctioned meet. So for instance, I have competed in USAPL, and USAPL has a certain guideline of what kind of belt, size of belt, what type of singlet, what type of knee wraps and sleeves, etc. that you need. And that's not something that I knew at first. So if you are preparing for your first powerlifting meet, just be prepared because it can get kind of pricey, but we'll just break that down.
And they're really strict on those requirements, right? Like if your belt is not the right size, like, sorry, you can't use it.
Absolutely. Yeah, they actually do check your gear as they check in. So they'll go through and be like, oh, well, this singlet, this is not okay. We don't approve this or whatever. So the things that you need, like you absolutely have to have for a powerlifting meet is a singlet, either a belt, and shoes. So those are like the three necessary things.
Do they make you wear a belt?
They do not make you wear a belt.
Okay.
However, it's powerlifting.
It's an advantage.
It's a huge advantage. So I would call that a necessary beast to have for your meet. Something that isn't optional, but I highly recommend for everyone is knee wraps or sleeves. And that just offers support for your squatting and even your deadlift if you choose to use it for that. Especially with powerlifting because you are overloading yourself on weight and there's not a whole lot of technique involved. You really want to protect your body parts that are moving, such as your knees. Another one is wrist wraps. Because in powerlifting we do low bar squats, your wrists are quite turned back and you really want to support those. So I suggest getting wrist wraps, and again, you can't just get the cheapest ones. You have to make sure that they're approved depending on your federation.
And then you'll use those in bench too.
Yeah, and bench. You will definitely want wrist wraps for bench. Above all, squats maybe. Some people do, some people don't, but bench for sure. And then shoes. So then there's two different kinds of shoes that you probably need to have for powerlifting. One would be some sort of heeled shoe. So there's different sizes. I have a 1/2-inch shoe for powerlifting, a 1/2-inch heel is what it's called. Or you can go all the way up to 3/4 inch, which is more Olympic lifting style. But also for deadlifts, and even some people choose this for squats, is flat shoes. So like Converse or even deadlift slippers.
Yeah, so they should be flat and they should be really firm soled.
Yeah, so don't use your regular tennis shoes.
Nothing squishy.
Nothing squishy. It's not what you want for deadlifts. You can even choose to go barefoot. And that's totally fine as well. So
I just saw someone on like Instagram or something wearing deadlift slippers the other day, and I was like, what on earth? I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
I think that in my federation, you can't go barefoot, but you can wear deadlift slippers.
Okay.
So it's just depending on your federation. So make sure you guys read up. So just to recap, for powerlifting, you definitely need a singlet, belt, and shoes. And something that's highly recommended, although not necessary, are knee wraps and sleeves and wrist wraps.
Yeah. So, can we talk a little bit about the difference between training with gear and competing with gear?
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a lot of controversy out about, like, should you use gear? Should you train with gear? Does gear make you weaker? Does gear make you dependent upon it? And I'm of the philosophy that if it gives you an advantage, you should use it. You should definitely use it. A belt gives you an advantage. I know, I don't have a huge difference between my belted squat max and my unbelted squat max, but there is a difference. I mean, it's at least 5 pounds, if not 10. Some people have even bigger difference between that.
Yeah.
So you want to wear a belt, but you don't need to train with your belt in such a fashion that you put it on the minute you get to the gym and don't take it off until you're done.
With your bicep curls and your shrugs.
Right. So I use the 85% rule. So if I'm over 85% of my max, then I throw on my belt. There have been days where maybe my back is a little bit cranky and I'm like, I know I'm only at 80%, but I'm just going to put this on because things just don't feel great and it feels a little bit better if I have a belt on. But below that, I don't use it. What point do you use it at, Mary?
I usually try to stick to the 85% rule. Mm-hmm. Although if I'm having a really good day, I will try to push it a little bit more. Or if I need to put it on for mental purposes, I'll try to put it at the notch lower than what I would normally use. So if I'm on the third to last notch, normally I'll try to go to the fourth to last notch. So that way it's there, I feel it, but it's not doing exactly what it would be doing if I was on the higher notch.
Right.
And just to mention, just like what Kristen said, like, you don't need to walk into the gym and put your belt on. If you can't do a proper squat with the bar or even with 95 pounds without a belt, or even less, if you cannot do a proper squat, you don't need a belt. You do not need a belt. Take your belt off, work on your form. Once your form is good and you figure out a max and you're safe with your squat, then you can start implementing the belt rule. But don't throw on a belt when you start lifting, because that's going to set you up for a lot of stabilization muscle issues and a lot of other problems down the road.
Right. If you don't learn how to stabilize your core and your spine at a moderately heavy weight, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to set yourself up for injury, for sure. Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about the benefits of knee sleeves or knee wraps? Because they're different between powerlifting and weightlifting. So what is the purpose of them in powerlifting?
So in powerlifting, they're there to keep your knee together, basically. They're there to offer your knee a lot of support and tightness so that way when you go down in the squat or even down in the deadlift, it helps you bounce out and it helps protect your knee. So if you guys have ever been shopping for knee sleeves, you have the thinner 5mm or the thicker 7mm knee sleeves. And the 7mm knee sleeves are more for powerlifting because they do offer that rigidity and that ability to kind of bounce back. So in Olympic lifting, most Olympic lifters go ass to grass.
Right.
And with the 7mm knee sleeves, it is really hard to go ass to grass. And even with the wraps, because the wraps are different in Olympic lifting and powerlifting. Powerlifting, just like the knee sleeves, you wrap your knee so all you can do is just hit below parallel and then bounce out a bit.
So does that give you an advantage with lifting weight? I mean, can you lift more weight if you wrap your knees?
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between wrapping and knee sleeves. You'll see the really heavyweight lifters who are lifting, 6 to 1,000 pounds. They typically wrap their knees, and that's just because it is more support and it holds their knee together, which is terrifying. But it'll do a better job than the knee sleeves.
Right, and they wrap them really tight.
Really, like you cannot walk around for 5 minutes in those without blood flow being restricted to your legs. So they wrap it, they lift, and they unwrap almost immediately.
So then if you're using knee sleeves, because I've shopped for them and they talk about, what is your intended purpose for them? And then buying like either the size that you are or going down a size.
Mm-hmm.
So would you wear really tight knee sleeves all the time? Or do you have like a separate like competition set of knee sleeves that are really tight? Or how does that work if you choose to use sleeves?
So you should wear sleeves that you can lift in all the time and that are the same for your competition. So whatever you lift in, you should use for your competition. And that just, you're used to it and whatever. Ordering knee sleeves, and this is really a case-by-case basis. So I have weird knees and weird thigh to knee ratio. So I have really small knees. So I'm probably a small in my knee size circumference, but my quads and my calves are probably more of a medium. So I get really tight in the quads and the calves, but really super loose in my knee area where I need it.
That doesn't sound helpful at all.
No, it's not helpful at all. So I just recently got wraps, like the Olympic lifting wraps, and those help a whole lot because I can tighten them where they need to be tight and loosen them where they need to be loose.
Right. I'm a really big fan of those wraps.
I like them. I like them a lot.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, go.
I did purchase some knee sleeves, and I followed like all the rules, and I got the 7mm ones because I was like, well, if 5 is good, 7's better, so let's get those. And even though I'm an Olympic lifter, I'm not quite sure why. I was having some knee issues, and I thought, I'm just gonna
Bigger's
get these.
Better.
Yeah. And then like I couldn't even get them over my calf. I mean, I was like, I watched all the videos of how to put them on, and I was like, forget this. These are such a pain in the ass. I could not pull them up. I like broke 2 fingernails and don't even have long fingernails, like trying to pull them up. It was such a disaster. I just sent them back and stuck with my wraps. But I think I got one of them like kind of up, and I tried to just do like an air squat with them, and I was like, oh, these really restrict my range of motion. Yeah, I don't like these. So
it really depends. Powerlifting, all you want to do is hit parallel or just a little bit below and then bounce out. Olympic lifting, man, you need to go to the floor.
Right.
And so now let's kind of move and shift into Olympic lifting because there's a little carryover, but not much.
Yeah. So the necessary items for weightlifting, if you're going to go to a weightlifting meet, the only thing that like 100% you have to have is a singlet. You can't compete without a singlet.
Right.
But there aren't rules about what that singlet needs to be like. You can wear a legless. That's becoming really popular right now with younger women. It basically looks like a leotard. Courtney Batchelor, Snortless Singlets, is making some really awesome legless ones, and girls that have really big thighs are loving those.
That's me.
But anyway, so it doesn't matter what your singlet looks like. Singlet. Doesn't matter what the brand is. It just needs to fit and not like fall off of you. So that's the only thing that is 100% necessary. Although you'll probably never see an Olympic lifter on a platform in a competition not wearing Olympic weightlifting shoes.
Right.
The shoes have a pretty substantial heel lift, and that gives you a really big benefit getting to that bottom position, because as Olympic lifters, we want to be very upright in the bottom position. So having your heels raised up off the floor allows you to be much more upright in the bottom of a snatch and the bottom of a clean. And then they're also very stiff on the bottom.
Yes.
So that gives you a lot of support. So singlet and shoes, and you should just, if you're an Olympic weightlifter, you should just train in those shoes. You should never not train in those shoes.
All the time.
I just put them on, and I'll even do, if I have like max height box jumps, I'll even wear my shoes for that.
You don't notice it after a while. The first couple workouts, you might feel weird in them, but after that, you feel weird without them.
Right. And so then another thing that you can wear in Olympic weightlifting is a belt. It's not the same kind of belt that you would wear in powerlifting. Powerlifting tends to be a very stiff, thick leather belt.
Right, and that's what I have. So, and my belt is really big. It'll stop it kind of overlaps my bottom rib and my top hip, so it's the 13 millimeter, so it's really long.
Right.
That does not fly in weightlifting.
You cannot do a clean or a snatch in that.
No.
It restricts your range of motion way too much. It digs into your ribs. It's really uncomfortable. So you can wear a little more flexible fabric, like Velcro type belt. All right, so the next thing would be wrist wraps. And I think these wrist wraps are pretty similar to what you would wear in powerlifting. Not?
No, they're different.
Okay. So wrist wrap, when you do cleans and front squats, it puts a lot of pressure on your wrist being bent backwards. Although I never wear wraps for like doing front squats. You wouldn't want to do that. Like you need to get your wrist used to that position and strong in that position. But pushing a lot of weight overhead, so the jerk and the snatch.
Yeah.
You may, if you have weak wrists, go ahead and throw on some wrist wraps, though I think it's not, for the average weightlifter, it's not necessary unless you have, an old wrist injury or whatever.
Yeah. If sometimes I'll have an exceptionally weird day where my wrists just feel odd, and so I'll put them on. But other than that, when I'm Olympic lifting, I don't. However, for bench or squatting, like low bar squatting, always.
You always wear them?
Always.
Okay. I used to always wear my wrist wraps for anything that was going overhead. And then my coach actually wanted me to stop doing that. I actually wanted me to stop wearing my belt. I was wearing my belt for clean and jerk only. You never want to wear a belt for snatch. You can't get in the right position. It's not enough weight anyway. I mean, the weight difference between your max snatch and your max clean and jerk, you don't need a belt for snatch.
Although I did see some people wear it. So right now it's the American Open's going on, and we've been watching, and I did see a few people wear it for the snatch.
Sure, I did. I think they had some really, really flexible ones, and maybe just to keep their back warm. I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, you can do it, but it's definitely more rare. I'm not at the level of those people in the A session of the AO, so
they're really strong.
Yeah. You can wear wrist wraps. You can wear your belt like we talked about for clean and jerk, but ultimately in weightlifting, if you can do the majority of your training without that gear, I think that you're going to build stronger wrists and you're going to build stronger core. Yeah. And then once you're getting up and doing some max attempts, if you want to throw it on, or if you know that you just want to wear it for a competition, do some training with it. But it's definitely not, I don't think, as necessary as in powerlifting.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to become reliant on your gear, especially when you're building strength.
Right.
Like building strength and always being supported, you may not build the strength that you need. For example, you don't go in every meet or every training session and wear your singlet.
Right.
You don't. Because, I mean...
You could.
You could, and that's totally fine, but you don't. But what you do is you wear it a week or two out, maybe every other training session, just to get used to lifting in them.
Sure.
So you may have some gear that you just need to get used to lifting in. So if you need to wear wrist wraps and you're going super heavy because you have to test your openers, yes, practice with them. Don't show up the day and be like, oh, I think this sounds like a great idea. I'm gonna try using this. That's a terrible idea.
Right.
If you're not comfortable with it, don't just throw it on the day of your meet, because that could end bad.
Yeah, that's not a good idea. You need to be used to it for sure. Yeah. And one more comment about a belt is where people will most commonly wear it is a clean and jerk. Generally, it's because the jerk may be causing them some back pain if you're getting a little arching in your jerk. So if you feel like I have to wear a belt when I jerk, I want you to take a look at your mobility and also your core stability, because that's telling you, and then also that position of that back leg, because that's telling you that you're probably getting a little arch in the low back and the jerk, and you don't want that. So if there's any gear that you feel like, I really can't do this lift without this gear, that should signal something to you that you should maybe take a look at. It's not, go ahead and wear the gear, but there's probably something else going on that you may want to be addressing. so that you don't get injured down the road. All right, so let's...
so kind of a mishmash of powerlifting and weightlifting is CrossFit.
Yeah, but first I want to talk about the knee wraps and weightlifting.
Oh, yeah.
So they're different than if you're using the wraps, not we kind of discussed the differences of the knee sleeves. If you're using knee sleeves in weightlifting, they're thickness. A little bit the thinner ones.
The thinner ones.
Right. And they're really just to keep your knees warm. A lot of us suffer from some patellar tendonitis that helps with that, kind of keep everything warm and held together and a little bit supported. But I've become a huge fan of knee wraps for the exact same reason, but they're just way easier to put on and off. They bother some people. But they're long, they're a lot more flexible than the powerlifting knee wraps.
Oh, for sure.
And you can wrap them in like this diagonal crisscross. Look it up on YouTube, like knee wraps for weightlifting, and you'll see some good tutorials on how to wrap your knees. So you can do it as tight as you want or as loose as you want. So I do mine kind of, if I'm going to wear them, I'll do them kind of medium, and then I can keep them on for my whole session. They might slip down a little bit, but I just kind of pull them up and redo them as I need to. But I find them much easier than knee sleeves, and they really don't get stinky like knee sleeves.
Knee sleeves get so stinky. I do a little different, so I do it just a little tighter, but I make sure, like, you do it semi-loose around most of my knee, but I do it not exceptionally tight, but tighter around where my patella tendon, that front tendon there, where it reaches the patella, so where the patellar tendonitis happens, I wrap it just a little tighter there, and that gives it just a little bit more support. So really, it's just to each his own.
Right, absolutely. But let's talk, before we move on to CrossFit, because we are talking about singlets, let's talk about everyone's question. What do you wear under your singlet?
Oh my God. So my first meet, I almost had to like email and call someone about this because I didn't know. All you read online is that you have to wear, whitey-tighties, briefs, or like some sort of underwear that's not going to give you support. So what they're worried about in powerlifting is that you're going to wear some sort of briefs under your singlet that are actually geared briefs, and so they're going to help you lift.
Okay. And so those are not allowed.
Those are not allowed if you're doing unequipped lifting.
Right.
If you're doing equipped lifting, it's going to be very obvious you have them on because you're allowed to have them on.
Right.
But the reason that they are so strict about that is just like I said, because they don't want an unfair advantage based on, your underwear. So I had the question because I train in a thong, so I wasn't sure that I could wear that underneath my singlet. And I had to look around, and I finally figured out that, yeah, you can wear that. You can wear normal underwear, you can wear boy shorts as long as it's not geared.
Do they check your underwear?
They do not, but your singlet is so tight.
You can see it.
That you can see it. So especially if you were wearing, like, geared compression shorts. You can't even wear compression shorts, by the way. If you're wearing some sort of tight underwear, they can see it through your singlet. So then they would check.
What do you wear when you weigh in?
So when you weigh in, you can wear whatever you want. So I wear like Nike shorts and my sports bra.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they don't make you wear what you have on under your singlet for weigh-in?
No.
Okay.
You could weigh in naked if you wanted to.
Right. Some people need to.
Some people do.
If you're cutting, heck yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's powerlifting. Weightlifting is not strict.
No.
Well, you can wear whatever you want under it. It's really whatever you're comfortable with. So I wear just like workout boy shorts under my singlet. They're comfortable. They don't dig in. I know some people that will wear like full length, that have like the long leg singlets, and they'll wear like full length spandex compression shorts under there. Watch out, because a lot of singlets out there are see-through.
Yes.
So you want to be aware of that as well. Who cares if you have panty lines, but if you're wearing something questionable or nothing under there,
you're going commando.
Just have someone maybe check out wash your singlet beforehand. Make sure
you're not showing anyone they don't want to see.
Right. But also in weightlifting, or in powerlifting, don't you have to wear a t-shirt under your singlet?
Yes, you also have to wear a t-shirt under your singlet. And I forgot about that. And so I wore this dressy t-shirt. So don't forget, and you want like a tighter t-shirt. So cotton is what they typically recommend, but get something that's form-fitting. Or like Meg Squats will wear like a crop top. Mm-hmm. So it'll be like a short sleeve crop top so that it covers where it needs to cover, but it's not a full-length shirt, so it stays out of the way. I would recommend that out of anything, but yeah. So, on to CrossFit?
Yeah, on to CrossFit. So, in CrossFit, there is so much gear that you could potentially use. And it's up to you, whatever you want to use. But if you're doing Olympic lifting type stuff, you might want to wear some Olympic lifting shoes.
Right. But so for CrossFit, do you want to wear shoes that are a little bit more flexible because you do a lot of running?
So generally, if you're doing a Metcon, you want to wear like a flexible type shoe, something that's not really squishy on the bottom. I started CrossFit before they had all of these special CrossFit shoes, like the Nike Metcons and Reeboks.
Yeah,
I can't even remember what they're called. So I started before all of that. So I would, get like Merrell shoes that are like something that's pretty flexible, like a barefoot style shoe or Innovates, something that you can move well in, that's not squishy, that you can run in, basically that you can do anything in. If you're doing a WOD that is heavy on Olympic lifting, and there's not running or other stuff in it that's not like pull-ups or something, then you can wear a weightlifting shoe. You don't want to wear your weightlifting shoe if you have a running WOD. Those are not comfortable to run in, and weightlifting shoes are way too expensive to wear out that way. So if you have mobility problems, go ahead and put those on if the workout calls for it. But if you are having to use them, that's probably a sign that you have some mobility issues.
Right.
If you can't do a good overhead squat or a good snatch in a flat shoe, then you've probably got to work on some ankle mobility, probably some hip mobility, probably some mid-back mobility, and also some shoulder mobility stuff. So,
right.
So another thing, and you can wear belts, if you feel the need to,
right.
Although most CrossFit workouts, like it's higher rep. It's not as, you don't necessarily need a belt though. If it's like a snatch ladder or something, or a clean and jerk ladder, then you might want to put it on. So if you're doing a competition, you need to check to see what gear is allowed. I've never seen one where they say like you can't. The only thing is like you couldn't use like wrist straps for a deadlift competition, or excuse me, you can't use wrist straps for a deadlift,
which makes sense.
Okay, so since we're talking about straps anyway, we didn't talk about that in powerlifting and weightlifting. So let's just talk about that real quick.
Yeah.
So you would use straps to connect your hands to the barbell. So whether you're doing a deadlift or a snatch,
or even a clean and jerk,
a clean and jerk, or pulls, whatever. So it's helpful if you don't have if you're doing like some overloading training, you don't have the grip strength. If that's the limiting factor, straps are going to help you.
Yeah. But I think you should only use it if you're overloading. Otherwise, you're going to get used to it and you're never going to build your grip strength. And that's why I didn't put it on my like necessary list, because it's not.
Right. It's not necessary. It's definitely not. You can train with them, but you can't compete with them. In weightlifting, it's most common to use them for if you're doing clean pulls or snatch pulls and you're over 100% of your main lift. but it can be really dangerous to do your snatch and your clean and jerk with straps because you're connected to that bar. If you're connected to that bar, if it's wrapped a lot, you could
go with the bar.
You could go with the bar. You could break your wrist. So some people do it. For the general weightlifter, would not recommend it at all. I don't even really like to use them for pulls if I don't have to, because I want to make sure that my grip isn't my limiting factor.
Right.
But there have been times where I have done some really heavy snatch pulls where I'm really trying to make sure I'm getting the bar into my hip, and I don't want to have to worry about my grip. I'm more worried about other things.
Right.
So I'll use them.
Right.
Okay. So back to CrossFit then. Really, all of the gear that exists, you can use it. Knee sleeves, you could use them. And if you've got some old knee injuries that you want to protect, go ahead and wear them. You probably want the more flexible, like 5 millimeter ones. You probably don't want them super, super tight, because you're going to wear them for a while.
Absolutely.
But I never wore knee sleeves. Probably the only gear I didn't use in CrossFit was knee sleeves. But another one that's become really popular in CrossFit is some sort of protection for your hands against ripping. And so like gymnastics grips, there's all sorts of things that have come on the market for that.
Yeah. Well, because if you tear your hand, you're out for whatever hand stuff for a little while.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I, in competition, would use grips if it was like a ton of pull-ups in a Metcon, and I was really worried about ripping my hand. I don't want to be out for the next event, or I don't want to have to be, I'm kind of a wuss if I have a rip on my hand, and I don't want to have to, put a really rough barbell and bleed all over it in a competition. I'm not quite that hardcore. Some people are. So if you're doing a workout that's got a lot of pull-ups or a lot of muscle ups, go ahead, and if you think you want to compete with grips, then go ahead and train with them a little bit. But ultimately, you want to build up those calluses, and then you want to take care of those calluses, right? So you want to shave your hands with I use like a little metal shaver. Whenever they get real rough, you want to wash your hands after you've had chalk on them so that it stops sucking up all the moisture out of your hands. You want to just take care of them.
Yeah. So if you were to have like a top 5 for CrossFit,
I don't even think there's 5 that
top
I think
2
are necessary.
Probably some good shoes.
Just some good general shoes that you can do everything in. And maybe wrist straps, because there does tend to be a lot of overhead. You might be doing a lot of shoulder overhead or a lot of handstand push-ups. And so you may really want to keep your wrists protected.
Right.
Those would be my big things.
So I think the takeaway for everyone listening is that every single of these lifting opportunities have a shit ton of gear that you could use, and like sounds fancy and cool, but really boil it down to the basics. Do your research on what's allowed, what's not allowed. Make sure that it's what you need and it's exactly what you want, because it can get really expensive if you don't buy the right things. And really just be smart about it, because you do not need as much gear as people try to sell you. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, remember that all these companies out there that are telling you need this stuff,
you don't.
They're selling you something.
People have lifted many years without this crap. So just keep that in mind. If it helps you, great, but it's not necessary. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and let us know on Facebook, or you can shoot us an email at empoweredbyiron@gmail.com. We'd be happy to answer any lifting questions or any gear questions. We both have our experiences with both the good and the bad, and what we would recommend and whatnot. But I think that's it for today. All right, thanks for listening, guys. We'll catch you next time.
All right, guys, don't forget about your 15% off promo code at Freak Athlete this week. Use code EMPOWEREDBYIRON for 15% off at freakathleteapparel.com. Also, stay tuned to our Instagram today, Monday, February 13th, for a chance to win a $25 Freak Athlete gift card. If you like what you heard today, please help us connect with other female badasses. We would love if you would leave us a review on iTunes, tell your friends about us, visit our website, which is empoweredbyiron.com. You can find each of us on Instagram. Mary is at MaryMo_92, and Kristen is at Kristen with an I, Lander. Future topics will include nutrition, programming and training, mental health, and just general female badassery.
Yeah, so let us know what you want to hear. If you have any input, that'd be awesome. And guys, this is Empowered by Iron. We want it to be a resource and an outlet for women who are finding their confidence, their independence, and their strength through iron. So thank you for listening. Thank you for checking in. And until next time, I'm Mary.
I'm Kristen.
And this is Empowered by Iron.